Over the past several years, glute training has taken off in the fitness world. While this may be predominantly presented in the female population, there are many reasons why men should focus on training their glutes. Building strong, powerful glutes benefits your strength, physique, posture, and athletic performance. So if you're ready to skyrocket your performance while adding more hump to that rump, let's dive into the only 3 glute exercises you need to build a bigger butt. We'll also touch on exercise technique, scientific research, and programming to minimize your gains. But first, let's quickly review the muscle anatomy of the glutes and their primary function. Understanding the glutes' functions will help you select the best exercises to train these muscle groups effectively. The glutes are comprised of 3 heads: the gluteus medius, gluteus maximus, and gluteus minimus. The main functions of the glutes include hip extension, hip abduction, external rotation, and posterior pelvic tilt. Now that we understand what muscles we're targeting and the functions they're responsible for, let's dive into the only 3 glute exercises you need for a bigger butt. Glute exercise number 1: hip thrust. One 2019 study published in the Journal of Sports Science and Medicine found that the barbell hip thrust favors greater activation of the glutes compared to more conventional exercises. A 2015 study done by one of the leading glute training researchers, Dr. Brett Contreras, found that the barbell hip thrust activates the gluteus maximus and biceps femoris to a greater degree than the back squat. And this 2018 study found that while the barbell deadlift was superior in activating the hamstrings compared to the hex bar deadlift and hip thrust, the hip thrust still provided the highest gluteus max activation. Here are the key points to keep in mind when performing the barbell hip thrust. Number 1. Keep the mid part of your back on the bench during every representative. One of the biggest form errors people make is they slide down the bench to the point where the bench is almost at their traps. This is a big mistake that will hurt your leverage, especially when you start going heavy. The next point on foot placement will help you set up correctly so this doesn't happen. Number 2. Plant your feet to align with your knees vertically at the top of each representative. This means you don't place your feet too far forward or too far back from your knees. If your back is sliding down the bench, it's likely your feet are too far forward. Number 3. Place the bar over your hips and use a pad or yoga mat wrapped around the bar if you need additional padding. Also use your hands to keep the bar in place. Number 4. Continue to look towards your knees and focus on pushing or curling your hips towards the ceiling while squeezing your glutes. Now that you're equipped with good hip thrust technique and the research to prove the movement's effectiveness, let's move on to the next exercise. Glute exercise number 2: the squat. Like all other muscle groups, targeting a muscle group with multiple exercises can lead to more significant gains than using just one exercise, even if it's considered the most effective. So let's throw squats into the mix to help expedite your glute gains. One essential benefit squats have over the hip thrust is that the squat puts the glutes in a deeply stretched position in the most challenging part of the exercise, which is the opposite of the hip thrust. Let's break this down. During the squat, the glutes are in a deep stretch at the bottom. Similarly, the glutes are in a deep stretch at the bottom of the hip thrust. It's worth noting here that the stretch is more significant at the bottom of a deep squat than at the bottom of a hip thrust. The key difference is that the most challenging portion of the hip thrust is at the top of the movement, where the glutes are flexed. The squat, however, is most challenging at the bottom of the movement when the glutes are fully stretched, making the squat and hip thrust a dynamic duo for glute growth. Here's one last item to keep in mind when squatting with the purpose of building bigger glutes. One old school study from 1999 compared a narrow squat stance and a wide squat stance. They found that a slightly wider squat stance further involves the glutes. These results suggest that stance width does not only cause isolation within the quadriceps, but does influence muscle activity on the medial thigh and buttocks. So if you really want to take your glute growth to the next level, start squatting with a slightly wider stance. Glute exercise number 3: deadlift. While many of the previous studies ranked hip thrust higher than the squat or deadlift, it's important to note that the latter exercises still activated the glutes significantly. So as we did with the squat, let's look at different deadlift variations that further target the glutes. 3 common variations include conventional deadlifts, Romanian deadlifts, and sumo deadlifts. Unfortunately, the conventional and Romanian deadlifts use narrow stances, so the initial lift heavily involves the hamstrings and lower back, with the glutes mostly firing at the block out. With a sumo deadlift, the glutes are firing throughout the entire lift. If your goal is to build a bigger butt, we recommend adding a sumo deadlift to your lower body training days. Now, while these are the top 3 exercises for bigger glutes, we understand that not everyone can perform all of these. So with that in mind, here's some solid glute training alternatives worth mentioning. Walking dumbbell lunges with a long stride is a great exercise for targeting the glutes. This exercise isn't as taxing as the large compound exercises we mentioned earlier, since you are training on a single side using lighter loads. Bulgarian split squats are similar to the walking dumbbell lunge, except it also requires balance and coordination. And like the walking lunges, placing your front foot further away from your body will put more tension on the hamstrings and glutes. Glute kickbacks are another excellent way to target the glutes directly with minimal systematic fatigue, and since these should be done with a lighter load, glute kickbacks are great for feeling the muscle and developing better mind-muscle connection. And lastly, the leg press done with a higher foot position and a slightly wider stance is a tremendous glute building alternative to wide stance squats. The benefits of using a leg press is that it's safe and allows you to push closer to failure. Now that we have the top 3 exercises to build a bigger butt plus some solid alternatives, let's get into the programming. Let's start with a few science-based muscle building principles. First, if you want to maximize your glute gains and build a bigger butt, you want to perform a minimum of 10 challenging sets per week that target the glutes. It's also worth experimenting with a higher number of sets as you become more advanced. Next is to experiment with training frequency, which refers to how many times per week you train a muscle group. For example, you can perform all sets in a single workout or fewer sets more frequently throughout the week. Based on the research, we recommend training each muscle group at least twice per week. So here are 2 examples of how to program your glute workouts, training them 2 or 3 times per week. First example, 2 times per week for a total of 14 sets. Monday hip thrust 4 sets of 8 reps, squats 3 sets of 12 to 15 reps, Thursday sumo deadlifts 4 sets of 6 to 8 reps, hip thrust 3 sets of 12 to 15 reps. Example number 2 3 times per week for a total of 18 sets. Monday hip thrust 3 sets of 10 to 12 reps, squats 3 sets of 12 to 15 reps, Wednesday sumo deadlifts 3 sets of 6 to 8 reps, hip thrust 3 sets of 12 to 15 reps, Friday walking dumbbell lunges 3 sets of 10 to 12 reps, kettlebell squats 3 sets of 15 reps. One thing to keep in mind is that switching exercises too often can do more harm than good. One 2022 paper by leading exercise scientists concluded that excessive rotation of different exercises may actually hinder muscular adaptations. The best approach is to choose 2 to 3 glute-focused exercises and focus on progression over time. So there you have it, the only 3 glute exercises you need for a bigger butt, a few honorable mentions worth considering, and a simple program example you can use to take your glute training to the next level. Did you find this video helpful? If so, click the like button below as it'll truly help out the channel. Make sure you subscribe for more videos and don't forget to click the notification bell so you don't miss the next one.